What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And today I am joined by yet another guest. This time I had the pleasure of being joined by Cole from How About Those Chiefs. I'm sure you guys know him. He's very popular here on YouTube, and he makes all sorts of Chiefs content all the time. It's been long overdue, Cole, that I had you on my channel. And one of the things that I really love about you, not only your videos and the content that you make, but it's the fact that you're very supportive of other content creators and kind of the Chiefs YouTube community and the NFL YouTube community, because I see you pop up in my comment section every once in a while, and I try to comment on yours whenever I can. I'm usually really busy, so I don't watch all of the Chiefs channels. I'm a big fan of Ryan and RGR Football. I don't watch them as much as I used to, just because I'm super busy and being in the Air Force now and everything like that. My schedule is all over the place, but I'm glad I finally found time to get you on here, man. But how are you doing today, first of all?
Bro, I'm doing really good, man. Just gearing up for the draft. I'm gonna stream it all and react, and got a couple guys coming down to the house, and my wife and kids are going to visit a friend out of state. So we're turning the house into like a battle station. I'm just gonna pump out as much content as humanly possible over like a 4-day span. So
you're pretty much gonna have your own war room over there, huh?
Yeah, definitely a less smart version than Veach and companies, but yeah, man, we're gonna be holding it down as best we can. Yeah
that's awesome. Everyone's gonna kind of be doing their thing. I'm gonna be doing my thing too, covering whatever picks we make and that sort of thing. It's gonna be a really fun time having the draft in Kansas City, and we'll talk about all the draft stuff and the Chiefs stuff, but I just kind of want to talk to you about your channel for a little bit first. So
sure.
I already talked about how I appreciate the support from you, man, and it's nice seeing you pop up in my comment section every once in a while. But you know what, tell me a little bit more about what you, so obviously I've seen your videos. Most people watching have probably seen your videos, but for those who maybe don't know who you are, go ahead and tell them what you do and kind of how about those Chiefs came to be.
Yeah, man, I am simply a fan of the Chiefs. Born and raised in Kansas City, still live here. I live in Lee Summit now, about 15 minutes from the stadium. Yeah, grew up watching the Chiefs my entire life. Never played football. Just really enjoyed it. And when I started this channel, I've been wanting to start a channel for like 2 years. I just didn't have the, I guess, the confidence to pull the trigger. I think part of it was just because I've never played. It's the fear of well, what will people think about me? And part of it's who cares, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I decided at the end of last season, the morning of Chiefs and Bills game, the divisional 13-second game. So I decided, I was like, all right, I already had the channel created, but never made a video. I was like, I'm gonna make an injury report that morning. I was like, I don't even know. It was horrible. It was a horrible video, but just decided to get started. 13 seconds happened, and was able to kind of carve out a niche doing, reactions to the fan reactions to the game and the Chiefs winning in wild fashion, and just kind of took off from there. I mean, I've only had the channel for 15 months. I feel like I'm still figuring it all out, but it's been a lot of fun, man. So I kind of come at it from just a more of an entertaining fan perspective. Kind of my model of this channel was Philip DeFranco on YouTube. If you know who that is, he's got a YouTube channel with 6 million subs or something crazy. He basically takes all kinds of news bits and what do I want to say? It's really concise and it's quick and to the point from a variety of news outlets. So I pretty much am a reactionary.
It's very easily, well, real quick, I think what you're trying to say is it's easily digestible, and people know exactly what they're about to watch when they click on your videos before they click on your videos.
Yeah. So that's the goal. I was a lot of people are doing podcasts. I want to do just shorter, more concise and to the point, and try my best to make it entertaining. My jokes don't always land, but it's been a lot of fun, man. And been putting a big emphasis on YouTube Shorts as well. We've been dropping one a day at least for the past few months, maybe a little bit longer. So I'm a videographer by trade. So I've been doing videography since 2017 for a living. And so yeah, all this stuff, the camera, the lighting, it's something I've amassed over years of work, and So I love to tell stories, and I used to interview like clients for short testimonials and stuff like that. And so I enjoy interviewing people and just getting behind the emotion of the player, the sport, the game, or whoever I'm talking to. So, but yeah, man, much respect to you and your channel. I mean, you got to think like you, RGR, like Seth Kaiser. There's a lot of people that have teeth in the game for many, many more years than me. So that's why I'm always about like, I welcome everybody. Same with KCSN and those guys, because you guys have had years in the game. So I've been a Chiefs fan my whole life, but haven't been covering the team like in any real capacity. So I'm just the new guy, just having fun, dude. That's just it.
No, that's really good stuff, because honestly, there is a place for a channel like yours, not just for the Chiefs fan base, but every single fan base, someone who's just being a fan and just like, having fun and reacting with the rest of them. Because like my channel, I try to be a little more analytical. But I'm not on like the level of like RGR football and Ryan and Dan and what they do. Like those guys put in hours and hours of watching film. They're going to give you, expert analysis. That's not really me. I'm more of a blend between like what you're doing and what he does. Like I kind of like, I want to feel like I know what I'm talking about. And I feel like I do know what I'm talking about most of the time, but I also am a fan at the same time. And I do have, moments where I may be a little too reactionary to, Chiefs games or just whatever happens. So it's great what you're doing. And I think your content is great, and it's fun to watch. And I also remember when I first started watching you, there was a couple of times where I literally just was casually watching your videos, and I noticed like one of my articles from Arrowhead Addict was in there, and I was like, hey, that's awesome. My article's in the video. So that was really cool. And you just you report on news, and you're being a fan, and it's nice to see. But so obviously in the short time that you've been doing YouTube, you've gained popularity very rapidly, and that allowed you to actually quit your job and do YouTube full time. So tell me, how has that transition been? How do you like doing YouTube full time? Is it as easy as people maybe think it is? Hey, I just get to make videos for my job, or is it sometimes hard, just grinding out those videos? Like what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you love what you do, I don't like, easy is like a relative term. You know what I mean? Like as long as you just enjoy what you do, you put in the work and the hours, and it's more fun to me, even though I probably work 60 hours a week or so on the channel, from, just researching, scripting, thumbnail titling. I did hire an editor 3 weeks ago, so I finally have an editor. So we're trying to even increase the output, and possibly if I can swing it, we'll see, but start a second channel just covering NFL wide, like big picture stuff. But Chiefs channel is always first priority for me. But yeah, it's kind of it's lonely doing this. I mean, I don't leave my house really. I just stay in my basement and make Chief videos all day, but I'm super introverted, so I don't mind it. I love the flexibility of working from home. I walk down 10 steps to my basement, and this is my basement office. I'm flexible to be able to help with the kids and put them down and stuff like that. So, I don't think I like 100% answered exactly what you're asking, but yeah, it's fun.
No, it makes sense.
And I'll say this, in September or maybe July, the season was coming, and me and my wife decided I needed to either take a step back from YouTube or quit my job, because I was basically working myself into the ground. I was getting up at 3:50 a.m. every day, working on the channel for about 4 to 5 hours. And then I had a salary videographer job that I was working, and I was having like, I mean, I don't really share this a ton, but just being like transparent, I was having like anxiety fits and stuff. But they were so new. I didn't know they were anxiety fits. I was like in bed with like knots in my stomach, like blood pressure, right? Like crazy stuff. And it turns out I was just overworking, and I'm not Superman. So we quit the day job, and that was a big leap because we had full benefits and like all that stuff. Sure. And yeah, it was the best decision I ever made, though. I'm very happy. I'm having a lot of fun, and the channel really grew. I had like 20-ish thousand like right around preseason, and so now we're at like 112 or something. So we've almost gained 100,000 since quitting my job. And I think I quit it September, but it was like right around the start of the season. So yeah, man, it's been wild. It's a dream of mine. I'm a huge, just for context, I'm a huge YouTube fan. I learn visually and audibly. All my video work that I've done, my photography, I learned from watching YouTube tutorials and then just going out and trying it. I consumed all my news from YouTube, Chiefs news from YouTube. I mean, now Twitter too, but I'm scrubbing Twitter all the time. But yeah, man, I'm just a huge YouTube fan. So the fact that I get to do this for a living, yeah, I'm extremely humbled and grateful for it, man. It's the best for me.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear. I'm glad it's worked out for you too. And I mean, again, just enjoy your content. I know a lot of Chiefs fans do.
Thanks, man.
Some of the stuff that you've been able to do though, since you've made YouTube a full-time thing, and I've noticed on your channel as of recently too, you've done a lot of interviews with other people on your channel, like C Dot being one of them, for example, which I'm a huge C Dot fan, listen to him on the radio all the time. So I really like those conversations that you have with him. Those were some of my favorite videos, but what's been your favorite interview so far that you've done on your channel, just bringing in all these different Chiefs content creators and big name fans across the community?
Dang, favorite? I mean, the one that came to my mind initially, it's just because I think it was a big bucket list check mark for me, was Najee Johnson with the Chiefs.
Yeah, that was a big one.
My first ever Chiefs player, had a rookie year. He played snaps in the Super Bowl. And yeah, that was one where I got off that interview and I was just like, holy crap, dude, we just interviewed a Chiefs player. Like, that's so cool to me. And he was super nice, super respectful. And yeah, he hit me up early on in the season and just said he's a fan of my work, which is wild to me. And some of the other people that have just reached out over time saying, hey man, keep going, love your content. Yeah, I just never expected it. So that was like the Chiefs player with Najee. That was super fun. But I've really enjoyed just being able to connect with other creators. Like the one with Ryan was really good a couple weeks ago. Ryan Tracy of RGR. I don't understand how somebody can be so busy and know so much. Like, yeah, he works full time. He's dabbling in multiple channels, NFL 33, RGR. But then he was answering me like multiple players from multiple position groups on day 3 picks, like by name, off the cuff. And I'm like, you're a freak, dude. I don't get that. But yeah, the Ryan one was a lot of fun. I had Kent Swanson from KCSN. That was a really fun one. But yeah, C Dot, he's another guy. He reached out way early and just basically said, hey man, I see you're grinding on YouTube. If you ever want me to come on, I'd love to come and talk Chiefs. So we've probably had him on like 5-6 times. And I just hit him up. I say, hey, do you have any free time this week? And he's like, yeah, man, let's do this day at this time. And I'm like, all right, let's go. So he's been another guy. I mean, since I had less than 5,000 subs, he just reached out and was super kind and cool. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've had guests on earlier, kind of in my YouTube career, I guess, if you want to call it that. Yeah. And I learned I would just ask people for interviews. Like Tucker Franklin, before he went to KCSN and he was at Arrowhead Report, I had him on. He was super nice. And I just learned, the worst people can say is no if you just ask them to come on your channel. And it's super awesome that you've been able to get so many faces on your show. And like Ryan, you talked about him, and I just had him on last week. Like, it's crazy how much he knows. And honestly, like the way you felt about Najee Johnson, like I felt about Ryan when I had him on my channel for the first time like 2 years ago. I was like, I just got RGR football on my channel. Like, this is crazy, because Ryan was actually my inspiration for starting my YouTube channel. I really watched Ryan. Yeah. And I didn't have a YouTube channel. This was like 2018, 2019. That's around when I started. And I was like, I feel like watching Ryan helped me learn enough about football that I feel like I can make my own channel and like know what I'm talking about. And here I am, fast forward a couple years later and have a few thousand subscribers, have fun making videos. It's fun. It's nice to see. But another question I wanted to ask you was, how do you manage so much content? So obviously with YouTube being a full-time thing now, you're cranking out videos every day. A struggle that I have still is sometimes I'm sitting there and I go, I feel like I need to make a video, but I have no idea what to talk about right now. Like, I made a video on like, what else is there to talk about? What are some of the things you do when you feel like there's nothing else to talk about?
Yeah. In the off season, I have like brainstorming sessions now with my editor. And one reason why I hired him, he is a buddy of mine, but he is a storyteller, like kind of like me. So we can just sit there and brainstorm like off-season stuff. Like, we're working on some stuff right now for the draft, like some of the greatest first-round draft picks that the Chiefs have had throughout history. I have a short coming out soon about basically the Chiefs' lack of being able to draft a quarterback successfully until Patrick Mahomes. I'm just kind of brainstorming. And at the beginning, I was just scrubbing. I would scrub basically Twitter and Bleacher Report and just look through everything and be like, all right, Well, there's an article here about 5 potential draft picks for the Chiefs. I'll react to that in like 30 seconds, and then I'll come over here. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are at the 8 a.m. Golf Invitational with Jimmy Kimmel and all those guys, which Mahomes wasn't there for some reason this year. It's just Kelce, but I'm working on something for that. I just scrub everywhere and just think, what would Chiefs fans want to know in as quick as of a like snippet as possible? And that's kind of how I approach it.
Well, now that you mention it, it makes a lot of sense too, because you can easily click on one of your videos, one of your daily videos, and you basically just get all the Chiefs news for the day. It's like watching the news, but for the Chiefs, and you just kind of talk about everything, maybe for a couple minutes, even if it's like the smallest bit of news. You make sure to mention it though. And I think that's a great thing, because a lot of Chiefs channels, including myself, like I don't even really do that. I don't talk about everything. I try to, like when I see something, when I see a headline that it's like, oh, I got to talk about this, I got to make a video on this. Usually it's like a trade or a signing or something like that. But you make sure to like, hey, if there was like some charity event for a Chiefs player, like I'm going to talk about it. And that's great, because honestly, that stuff deserves exposure too.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like in the off season, you're really having to scrape the bottom. I mean, you're at the bottom of the ocean, like digging, trying to look for like random gold coins that have been deposited.
Yeah, like a good one from the past few years was, could McCole Hardman have a breakout year for like the 3rd year in a row? I remember I saw that video probably 50 times.
Yes, sir. And it's just, I think there's like a bit of a misunderstanding about me by some people, like on Twitter. Like, dude, I grew on all social medias like way faster than I ever thought I would. I didn't know on Twitter I'd even have a following. Like, I literally got Twitter. I had a personal Twitter, but I got this, how about this Chiefs Twitter, to literally follow all my favorite people for Chiefs news and NFL news. And so, a lot of people are like, well, he's not an expert. I'm like, well, I never claimed to be. I literally just take all the Chiefs news for the day and try to spit it out in an entertaining way. I mean, I've been learning a ton along the way. It helps, like, just being a lifelong Chiefs fan. It's so fun to me. Like, I grew up with my brother and my dad, in the 90s, watching Neil Smith, watching Derek Thomas in the early thousands, watching Trent Green, Jamal Charles, Priest Holmes, Dwayne Bowe, Tony G. Like, this is just my childhood, and I get to, live it out now for a job in the greatest era of Chiefs Kingdom.
Oh yeah,
with Patrick Mahomes and company. So yeah. Here's another thing too, real quick. That's why I've been bringing people on. I've been bringing a lot of people on for 2 reasons. One, it's the off season and content is slow, but 2, for whatever reason, my platform's really grown, and I really like to shed light using my platform to other content creators. Because, dude, I was listening to you, Michael Darcy, Arrowhead Addict, RGR, a lot of these guys last season, or 2 seasons ago, rather, before I even started a channel. I would just literally listen to your guys' post-game reactions. I would listen to Arrowhead Addicts. I'd listen to RGR, and I was just a fan. So I just consume. I would comment. You guys didn't know who I was at the time, so I just comment on there. And the fact that, like, you guys provided the value to me, and it's like, now that the platform's grown, I've been just bringing people on, being like, Ryan, you have your draft guide coming out, dude. Come on the channel. Let's plug it. KCSN, same thing. Like there's plenty of room, I feel like, in the kingdom to share the love, man. So we're not competition in my mind, because people are going to attach to people they like in particular, and just watch them or maybe get introduced to others. And I don't take any offense to any of that stuff.
Yeah. And that's a great thing, man. And that's good to hear, because I do think the content creator community is competitive, but in a good way. I don't think it's anyone saying like, oh, I got to be better than How About Those Chiefs. How about those Chiefs getting all these views? I got to beat that. I think it's very much like, you know what? I'm really happy. And that's how I feel personally. I'm really happy for Cole. Like, I'm glad to see his channel doing well. And like you said, I think there's plenty of room for it, because you mentioned how you were a fan, you were just watching these videos. And that's how I was with Ryan before I started my channel. And it's very easy. Like, if there's anyone out there watching right now that feels like they want to talk about Chiefs football, hey, give it a shot. You never know. You could end up, fast forward 15 months later, end up like Cole, and you have your own YouTube channel and you can quit your day job. It's amazing, really, what YouTube can do. And the Chiefs community is very tight knit. So no, that's all great stuff, man. But enough about you. Let's talk about the Chiefs.
Let's do it.
So obviously the draft is this weekend. We're finally here. It's draft season. So I know you said you're not huge into the draft, or at least you're not an expert on all these prospects. I wouldn't call myself an expert. I do have my favorite prospects though, and I've looked a little bit at this year's draft. But I just wanted to ask you, what are your plans for this year's draft? I mean, I know you said you're going to have your kind of war room set up covering the draft and stuff, but how do you plan on enjoying the draft yourself?
Yeah, there's a couple things we're doing. One, I kind of took a shot, rented out a event space at Boulevard Brewery.
I heard about that.
Yeah, the rec deck. So we actually sold that out. That's Wednesday night. I'm actually really grateful I started plugging it early because it's the same night that the Kelsey brothers are doing their live. I think if we would have announced that even close to the same time, nobody would have came, but it's fine. I would choose the Kelsey brothers over myself as well. So we're doing that to kind of start things off. And I'm going to meet like a bunch of mods of the channel and just people who have been consuming the content over the months and about the football season and a half or whatever that it is now. So that's just to start things off Wednesday. Thursday, I'll go up to Union Station with a couple guys and just take it all in. But during the draft, I'm actually coming back home. I'm going to stream it all and just react live and make long form content, short form content all weekend long. And basically what I'm doing, man, is I'm just going to react the best that I can. I have a few draft guides that I have, and I've gotten permission to use, like that franchise guy, KCSN, and I'll use a couple others and just talk about what's happening and just give my thoughts about it. Yeah, definitely not a draft expert, man. All I've really been doing since basically a couple weeks after the Super Bowl ended, I've just been trying to study as best I can, look at mocks, see where trends are going based on how the board falls, and it's a whole other beast. Like I was talking with Kent Swanson, and you probably have a lot of teeth in the game, or hours in the game rather, studying. Like Kent Swanson said he has like 700 plus hours into this year's draft. I'm like, what?
Yeah, like I do watch film. I do watch film on prospects, but like when you talk about getting down to day 3 guys and stuff like that, I don't have that kind of time to get that down low on the list of players. So like I have a pretty good idea. Like first 3 rounds, I know who I want, I know who I don't want, but honestly, when you get to day 3, rounds 4 through 7, it's a crapshoot.
What are you doing? Are you streaming live and reacting too, or what are you up to?
That's what I plan on doing. I'm planning on live streaming my reaction to the draft.
Nice.
I'm not sure how exactly I'm going to do it yet. Last year, I just kind of would go live, but I would only like tune in when the Chiefs were making their picks or like when they were on the clock. So I'm not quite sure yet. I'll figure it out. But yeah, that I'm going to be kind of the same as you though. And honestly, the way that you described it, that sounds like the right way to do it, because it'll be nice to go up to Kansas City and like see the draft, and the draft is there. You know, you don't get to do that very often and have the draft in your hometown. But once it starts, I mean, that's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be a crazy thing. So it'll probably be good for you to go back, hop on your YouTube channel. And if you're a content creator, I mean, you kind of want it. This is a good time to be capitalizing because it's the draft. You can get a lot of views from that. And it would be really hard to do that from the actual draft site.
Yeah, basically impossible. And I'm super introverted, man. So like even just having the pre-draft hangout at Boulevard and then going up to Union Station during the day, that's a lot of people, like in a very short amount of time. So it'll be good to kind of recluse back to the basement and react. And like, as far as like prospects and stuff go, I do 2 Q&As a week on my channel. And we talk more about, like, I'll go over like certain players if people ask, but I'm more just looking at the Chiefs' needs overall and their position groups and wondering when they're going to take said position group player. So like first round, or I would be curious to hear your thoughts. You're leading the interview. I'm kind of flipping it for a second, but
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was like, feel free to redirect if you want, but I'm like, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on what you think could happen in the first round. I mean, I feel like O-line, D-line, or maybe wide receiver. I feel like the Chiefs at the end of the day will make a non-sexy pick, but a good one for either O-line or D-line, you know, and if the right person falls wide receiver wise, like maybe they can go up and grab somebody. I know people are talking Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers. There's others being pegged to the Chiefs first round, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, man, on what you think.
This is going to be a really lame answer, but it really just depends on how the board falls. I know it's not an exciting answer. I know that's like fans are like, no, tell me who you think they're going to pick. But like, it just depends on how the board falls, because you're right. They could go wide receiver, O-line, D-line. It just depends on who's available, because there's obviously 31 picks in the first round, should be 32, but the Dolphins got their pick stripped or whatever. So there's that many picks in the first round, but the Chiefs, as well as many other teams, are only going to have like 15 to 20 players with an actual first round grade. So if they have a first round grade on Zay Flowers and Zay Flowers is still available in like the mid 20s, I absolutely could see the Chiefs trading up and getting Zay Flowers because they feel like they won't get him at 31, but he's the last player they have with the first round grade. Brett Veach isn't afraid to move up. I think it's a very good chance you could see him move up. I don't know who they'll pick. I mean, I am a Zay Flowers guy. I do like him. I know some people are kind of turned off by him because he's another kind of 5'10" receiver that plays purely out of the slot, and the Chiefs already have Tony and Sky who can do that. But that said, Zay Flowers is an elite athlete, and he's a very good talent in this draft. He has some of the best. He has some of the best change of direction in this draft, like almost kind of resembling Tyreek Hill. He's not Tyreek Hill. I don't want to say that. Like Ryan even said that on my channel. He's like, guys, the next Tyreek Hill is not coming. You have to be mindful of that. But as far as like being close to Tyreek Hill as an athlete, Zay Flowers is very similar if you wanted to make that comparison, just kind of in the way he moves. But yeah, man, to answer your question, I don't know what they're going to do in the first round. Like if you put a gun to my head and asked them who they were going to take, I couldn't even give you a name really. I would probably say wide receiver or offensive tackle though is the way they would go. I think there's enough smoke around wide receiver that wide receiver being taken in round 1 is a very real possibility. But also offensive tackle is a huge need. And it's one that if you don't address it in the first few rounds, you're probably not getting a guy that can start for you in the later rounds because good offensive tackles go very quickly. So.
Yeah, man. And I'm more confident of like, well, I could probably tell you a few position groups the Chiefs more than likely wouldn't draft in the first round, but I could still be wrong. I mean, I just saw, I saw a cornerback drafted, pick 31. I think Arrowhead Addict. It was an article. It wasn't you. I don't remember who it was. I just looked at it today. I know Albert Breer is talking about a running back. I'm like, I would be very surprised, but I guess I wouldn't. I would be surprised if they took a running back in round 1, if they took a linebacker in round 1, maybe even a tight end, but I wouldn't rule anything out. But dude, after the CEH thing, I would be pretty surprised.
It would be very hard.
Running back.
Yeah, it would be very hard to see them going in that direction. And like the running back that you're talking about, I saw that it was Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama was the rumor. Like the Chiefs, they might move up for this guy. And first of all, I don't think they would need to move up for Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he could very easily be available at 31. So trading up for a running back honestly just seems unnecessary. I wouldn't hate it so much because I feel like people are scarred from the Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick from a couple years ago, and I understand that. But honestly, if it was Jonathan Taylor that was the pick, it's not so much the problem that running back was the pick. It's that you took one of the worst running backs you probably could have selected at the spot. Because if Jonathan Taylor was the pick, I don't think Chiefs fans are complaining nearly as much. If you're getting an elite running back, a running back that the Chiefs have a first-round grade on, look, I'm not going to be thrilled because I don't think running back is that big of a need, and I think you can get a guy that can contribute in the later rounds. We just saw Isaiah Pacheco dominate in the Super Bowl, and he was a 7th-round pick. But I wouldn't lose sleep over it. That's for sure.
Yeah, man, I think at this point in time, I'm just excited for the mock drafts to be over and just see how the board really falls. Like, I don't mind the mock drafts at all. I'm always very intrigued. I've watched a lot of live streams just from people doing mocks, just seeing like their mindset of, oh, the board's falling like this, so this is why we're going this direction. It's always interesting to me, but at the end of the day, the board's going to fall potentially half dozen different ways. So I'll be curious just to see, you know, a lot of the offensive tackles going early, and then who's next? Defensive ends, like who's going to start trickling down. And then Brett Veach in his presser, I'm sure you heard it. He's hilarious in his answers. He basically is like, yeah, I wouldn't rule out trading up, staying put, or trading out of round 1. Because then Chiefs fans could watch us draft more people day 2. I was like, he just gave the safest answer, like literally
He's
possible.
Basically saying a bunch of stuff without actually really saying anything. And I'm actually going to add one more note, just like with the running back rumor, like that could just be the Chiefs putting out a smoke screen, to be completely honest, because this is not the Chiefs' first draft. Brett Veach has gotten better at the draft every single year. It could be honestly all BS, the whole thing about running backs. And like you mentioned with the thing about trading back or trading up, like he just said a bunch of stuff without actually saying anything. So that's Brett Veach for you. But no, it'll be fun to see which direction they actually go. So next question I had for you, I kind of want to back up from the draft a little bit. I wanted to ask you, so free agency was not too long ago. Do you have a favorite signing that the Chiefs made? Who was your favorite acquisition that the Chiefs made this offseason in free agency?
I think one of my favorites, just like off the top, it was the most unexpected, but it was Drew Tranquil, because I just love what he brings to the room.
Yeah, that's a really good pick.
It was a position group that I was like, going into free agency, I was like, I don't know that they'll add much to the linebacker room. I mean, I know they did not tender Darius Harris, I think is they didn't tender him, right? I think that's what it was. So they let him walk.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, they'll maybe add or maybe draft one late, which I still think they could draft one late, because Brett Veach mentioned late round linebackers and even tight ends in this draft class. But yeah, Drew Tranquil was a fun one that I was pretty stoked about. I actually low-key like Richie James. I'm not saying he's going to be the game changer in the Chiefs, wide receiver room that's going to replace Juju for 1,000 yards or anything like that. But dude, he had a breakout season last year, almost 600 yards with Daniel Jones, has returned over 100 kicks and punts in his NFL career. I know he muffed 3. He muffed 3 punts last year, so that's a little concerning to me, but I do like the sneaky signing of Richie James. And when you just look at their like contracts, man, it's like nothing. It's dirt. Same with Charles Omenihu. That was a good one. I realized they got a little bit of a steal, I mean, in my opinion, because of maybe some of the pending charges going on with him right now, but I think it should be minimal of what happens in the end there. It's been a very like as far as offseason splashes, and you probably agree, like they didn't make any crazy moves, but they've all been like,
I would say Juwan Taylor was a relatively big move, but then all the other
big
ones,
one right off the jump. Yeah.
4-5
year, 80 million or whatever is quite a bit. But I feel like the Chiefs now, they can go into the draft. There's not a position that they're like absolutely
pigeonholed into taking.
Yeah, they must have, like, even think a couple years ago when they drafted McColl, it was kind of potentially out of necessity for what may have happened with Tyreek at the time. I feel like, do you think they would have, if Tyreek was fine, do you think they would have reached and snagged McColl? I don't know. So I just feel like they're in a pretty good place as far as they can let the board kind of fall to them and just see where to pick.
Well, and real quick too, I mean, KCSN was talking about this. I was listening to them last week, and I don't want fans to get the wrong idea. We're not saying, hey, the Chiefs don't need a right tackle. They probably need to get a right tackle in this draft, but it's not like they don't have a right tackle on roster. Like Lucas Niang, for example, started in 2021. Like worst case scenario, Lucas Niang could play right tackle. I'm not saying the Chiefs couldn't add a guy there, but like you said, we're not pigeonholed into taking someone like when we traded for Orlando Brown a couple years ago, and we just absolutely needed a left tackle and we weren't sure if we were going to get one in the draft. Like they were kind of pigeonholed into trading for Orlando Brown. I don't feel like there's a position like that this year. Yes, they still need to improve in some positions, but
for sure
they could go in a bunch of different directions. Absolutely. And I like what your answer was to your favorite signings. Drew Tranquil was a good one because he solves a lot of problems. He's a very good coverage linebacker.
Yeah.
The Chiefs linebackers were not good in coverage this past season. Richie James is also a good one. Ryan actually name dropped him in the episode that I did with him.
Okay.
He talked about how he actually had like the best open score out of, if you compared him to the Chiefs wide receivers from last season, Richie James was actually the best at getting open out of all of them. So that's really interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, so I'm not really sure how they actually determined that. I do know that Kadarius Toney was very close to him, though. He was like the second best at getting open. Not surprising, though. And it's also interesting that they were both former teammates on the Giants. So Richie James could be a sneaky good signing, and I think he could be someone that becomes wide receiver 5 for the Chiefs and beats a couple guys out and gets rid of the Justin Ross hype once and for all and makes the team and does something. I actually did want to talk about that next, though. That was my next question for you. So I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on all the Justin Ross hype? Like, what do you think about it? I know you've made a few videos about it, and I know you probably get comments all the time, or you get comments in your live streams all the time. Hey, what about Justin Ross? What's Justin Ross going to do? I know C-Dot is a huge Justin Ross fan. So what are your thoughts on Justin Ross?
Yeah, real quick. When you were talking tackle, I wanted to tag something on real quick about the tackle.
Go ahead.
I can see the Chiefs either like go in a couple different directions. They go early if the right tackle, not a right tackle, but the right offensive tackle falls to them. Maybe they do draft somebody they think could be their left and they draft that guy early, or you could go right early and Juwan Taylor plays left, or just day 2, day 3, they find a guy that could at least compete at the right tackle spot with Niang and Kennard. And that's where I think the Chiefs will at least for sure do that. Brett Veach in his presser basically said Kennard could be right tackle, but he's basically a guard. I don't know if you heard him say that.
Yeah, I did.
I was like, he literally just said he's basically going to be a guard, which I thought was weird. But maybe that's just how they see it. But then as far as Justin Ross goes, I'm really rooting for the guy, man. I understand people love a comeback story. But right now, like even before the draft and before the Chiefs potentially adding another veteran after the draft. I'm not saying D-Hop. It could be. They need money first. There's no money. But let's say even the Chiefs draft 1 or 2, and then they maybe sign a vet. It could be like just a sneaky wide receiver veteran that's going to be super cheap. But dude, then you've got, even right now, you have MVS, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Richie James, and Justin Watson. I mean, those are pretty much, in my opinion, those guys are almost locks to make it. And that's not including anybody they draft or add after the draft, veteran-wise. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I really liked your video about Justin Ross, about the 2 extremes, and you're kind of in the middle. I actually plugged you in a video recently because I talked about it briefly, but I said if you want a little bit more in depth on thoughts, just check out your video on it because it was really good. But
yeah, I didn't see that one yet. Thanks for that.
Yeah, no, you're good. It was pretty recent, but it was just me saying I'm rooting for the guy. But based on those 5 receivers I just mentioned, I mean, you've got, John Ross, Justin Ross, Amir Smith-Marset, Fry Fogel, and Jerry and Ely. Like all those guys are maybe fighting for wide receiver 6 if the Chiefs opt for 6 receivers. I mean, last year they didn't. They went 5. I'm curious what they do about fullback. Like, that's
interesting that you bring that up. I was going to say that if they don't carry a fullback, that leaves room for maybe an extra receiver that they wouldn't otherwise carry in other years.
That's what I was curious. That's kind of where I was going. Like, could they use a tight end as like a hybrid fullback and then maybe carry an extra wide receiver or something? Like, I'm very curious about it. I'm rooting for Justin Ross, man. He is one of those guys that he really just fell from the draft because of injury. And if he can get back, close to his former self, it's been years, but if he can get back to it, I'm rooting for the guy and think he at least has a shot to make the roster. It's going to be tough, but I am rooting for the guy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do feel like there's 2 extremes, and it's just like, hey, let Justin Ross be Justin Ross. We'll see what he does. If he doesn't make it, well, tough luck. And, we gave it a shot. And if he ends up doing well, then cool. That's gravy. That's something you weren't expecting. But stemming from that, I wanted to ask you another question about wide receivers. So like, that's honestly been, I feel like the biggest topic of conversation among Chiefs fans right now is the wide receiver position. Where do you stand on that? Like, are you super concerned? Like, are you chilling? You think, hey, the Chiefs are going to figure this out in the draft? Like, Veach has a plan. Where are you on the spectrum as far as concern for wide receiver goes?
I was a little more concerned a couple weeks ago. But since the last 2 weeks, they've signed Richie James and Justin Watson, wrong Justin. Over the past 2 or 3 weeks, they added both of those guys. So I feel better. I still think they're going to add at least 1 to 2 in the draft. Kind of like last year, they took a stab at like a few cornerbacks. Yeah. Just like who's going to stick. I mean, I would be surprised if they didn't take a wide receiver in the first few rounds and then maybe another one later. Perhaps we'll see, but I feel okay. Juju Smith-Schuster, I would have liked to see him come back, but it was kind of apparent that the Chiefs weren't as high on him. At least compared to the Patriots, because the Patriots deal was, quote, notably richer than what the Chiefs offered. Sure. I do think, though, like the fact that the Chiefs offered Juju Smith-Schuster a deal, it was probably a couple years, multi-millions there. I still feel like they could potentially add to the room. I don't know if it's going to be D-Hop. I know a lot of people want that. I mean, it would be cool, but
it just doesn't seem like a Veach move to me. Like
it would go against that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like a Veach move to me. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I think there's a very good chance D-Hop gets dealed, maybe even on draft night. I just don't know if it'll be the Chiefs, though. And I mean, their cap space, how would they even fit a DeAndre Hopkins trade right now? I don't even think they could do that. So I'm not understanding where the money would even come from to do that, unless they like come up with some Chris Jones extension on draft night.
I mean, they have to have like $3 million or under in cap space right now. I
Yeah,
mean,
like they have just enough to sign the draft class, and that's about it.
I know that's like, so I'm team extend Chris Jones. I don't know if you are, but
Absolutely.
I'm very, please extend that man and keep him a Chief for years to come. But that would also just free up a bunch of cap space. I mean, hopefully around 10-ish million, and then
Yeah.
you can make a move if you want for somebody. But until they free up cap space, I'm with you. Like, how are they gonna? They know. We only see. This is the thing. They got the puzzle in their room. We only see like the fringe pieces, and we're just like trying to put it together. But that's the fun of the off season, man. I know some people get super like charged up about it and about differences of opinions, but I'm like, this is the fun of the off season, man. Like, I know MVS said don't have the Twitter GMs out and about, but dude, it's the off season, man. We're just trying to
This is
figure
what we
it out.
do.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure it out and have fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you again, I know you said you're not an expert on the draft or anything, but
Yeah.
even just from like reading mock drafts and being like, oh, who's this guy? Let me research him a little bit. Like, do you have any favorite prospects in this draft, guys that you've kind of that have kind of grown on you since you've been kind of covering the draft leading up to it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just follow where a lot of people are mocking players to the Chiefs. So I've been intrigued by like Anton Harrison as far as the tackle goes. I've been intrigued by some of the receivers, specifically the ones Mahomes has been working with. So Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, some day two guys I've kind of just been looking into and just trying to see like if the Chiefs take somebody, would they take this man? I will say the next group I'm kind of trying to do my last dive into before the draft is here in 2 or 3 days. I want to focus a little bit more on defensive tackles and defensive ends. But yeah, just like Nolan Smith is still getting drafted or mocked a lot to the Chiefs, but he fits like no Spags prototypes at all. So I'm not saying he couldn't come to the Chiefs, but that would be a surprising one for me. And maybe they have a true round one grade on the guy though. Like Trent McDuffie, he had smaller arms, for a typical Chiefs corner, and they made him work. So I would never rule it out.
No, you're absolutely right. Nolan Smith is not a typical Chiefs edge rusher. He would be by far the lightest edge they've even rostered since Steve Spagnuolo became the defensive coordinator. However, to give you some insight on that, I think Joe Cullen, the Chiefs defensive line coach, has a lot of influence, and he actually was coaching at the Georgia Pro Day in which Nolan Smith participated in defensive line drills. And I think if there's anyone in that room that could say, hey, Spags, I know this is what you like, but this is what I like. And I think if there's a chance that the Chiefs draft Nolan Smith, it's because of Joe Cullen and what he wants to do with the defensive line. But no, you're absolutely right. He's not the typical Chiefs edge rusher. But I think if Chiefs fans want any hope of drafting him, it's Joe Cullen. I think he could convince Spags if he's available. I'm not even sure Nolan Smith is realistic because
probably going to go.
I think he's going to go pretty high in this draft. But yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, Joe Cullen had an interview with who was it? BJ KCSN, and he listed off every single stat of Nolan Smith, like his 40
he's done his own work,
3-cone, like all that stuff. I'm like, he's at least interested and intrigued by the guy, but you're right, he could go, I mean, 10, 15, like who knows? I've seen him mocked kind of, he's slipped into like the late teens sometimes, but I've seen him mocked pretty early as well, like earlier than that. So yeah, man, it's tough for me, like as a content creator, trying to make all these like creative stories and shorts and engaging content to then study up on all these players in which the Chiefs are going to take maybe like 6 of them. So that's been the hardest thing for me is like to just the time, where do I dedicate it to who? So I've just been trying my best to get an overview of at least the first couple days before the draft gets here. It's been, that is another reason, honestly, why I've had like Ryan Tracy, Dan Harms, Kent Swanson, that franchise guy with his YouTube channel. He's got around 100K subs. Those guys, and you, I mean, even you, way more than me. Like those guys know the draft, or at least can navigate around it pretty intelligently. So I've had a lot of those guys on to have specifically draft talks, just to pick their brain. So that's been helpful for me because that is a short, like, that's kind of a short, what do you want to call it? Shortcoming of mine is just, I take Saturdays off during the football year. That's my day with the family. And those are college games. So like, I don't even watch college because I unplug, I spend time with my family unless it's NFL playoffs. And so, yeah, I'm definitely behind the curve for the draft stuff.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. It's a lot of work. I mean, like I said, those guys, they put in like hundreds of hours
It's crazy.
studying the draft. I know Ryan somewhere, I forget if it was on your channel, on your interview you did with him, said he put in like 300 something hours just in watching film. And on top of that, he's got kids and he's got the Locked On Chiefs podcast, all that stuff. So no, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And respect to all the guys that do that, because it's nice having guys like that in the Chiefs community specifically to give Chiefs fans insight on who they should be looking at. So it's a lot of fun. Last question I got though for you, Cole, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So what are your expectations for this draft, man? Like I know you're just going to kind of be taking it all in and reacting and taking the picks as you come, but like, do you have any expectations? Like, are you wanting the Chiefs to fill every single need? What would be considered a successful Chiefs draft in your opinion?
Oh man, I think if Veach can just even do 80% as well as he did last year, I mean, the fact that he had, what did he have, 9 starters that were rookies, and the only one that didn't suit up was Darian Kennard. Yeah, I mean, part of it's just how's the board going to fall, but I'd love to just see some of these like question marks filled, like defensive tackle. I mean, that could be later, but an edge, maybe a tight end. Like, I'm still curious about the tight end position, even though they brought back Blake Bell. They have Fortson, but like Fortson's a converted wide receiver. Blake Bell's 31. Travis Kelce's about to be 34. So I'll be curious if a tight end falls, will they take a chance? Obviously, we have Noah Gray, but and he's had a good leap from year 1 to year 2. I'm actually excited for him next year. But yeah, I think for me, it's just these positions of need that we see, even running back, like in late rounds, just be curious to see like the direction the Chiefs go. And when they get out of the draft, hopefully, then you just say, well, there's only like 1 or 2 positions they maybe need to sign a vet for. And hopefully that's Jerick McKinnon or, in the running back room to help, even if they draft a guy. Yeah, I think that's a win for me. And ultimately, man, I'm no expert. I'm kind of just, I trust in Veach and his crew, but yeah, that's kind of, if they could even have 75% of the success they had last year in the draft, I mean, I would be super happy. What about you?
Yeah, I want to come out of this draft feeling like we have a good solution at both, or not both, all 3: wide receiver, offensive tackle, and defensive end. Like, those are the 3 biggest needs in my mind. I'm hoping that they go some combination of those 3 in the first 3 rounds. I know sometimes the board, it just falls differently, and they think cornerback is the best guy on their board. In the second round, they take a corner, which is fine. But I would really like to see those needs get solved as soon as possible in the draft, because I know that talent starts to drop off as you get later in the draft. But yeah, that's what I'm looking for to happen. So hopefully they can figure that stuff out. And then honestly, anything else is gravy. Like you talk about running back or like defensive tackle, like those are needs too, but those are needs that if they wait till day 3 to address them, like I'm fine with that. Like if those are the only holes in your rosters, defensive tackle 3 and running back 2, you're doing all right.
Yeah, I think when I gave my answer, I went outside of like the 3 obvious wide receiver, defensive end, and tackle. So I definitely agree with you, and I would assume all those are addressed at least once in the first 3 rounds. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope so. At least by the 4th round, because they have 2 4th-round picks.
Yes, they do.
Or they move.
I wouldn't be surprised if they used one of those 4th-round picks to move up in the first, because that's what they did last year. The package in which they sent to New England to trade up in the 1st round had a 4th-round pick in it. So we'll see what they do.
It's funny if they use the Miami pick. That's another trade-up move from the Tyreek Hill trade.
Yeah. Yeah, huge treasure chest of picks they got from that trade, and then they're still reaping the benefits of that. But no, Cole, that's all I got for you, man. Awesome, I got through my list of questions for you. It's been a blast having you on. We'll surely do this again sometime. But before I sign off, why don't you go ahead and tell the fans that are watching where they can find you if they're not already subscribed?
Yeah, man, it's kind of on the little name badge here, hbtCHIEFS. You can find me there on, I have Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And TikTok, but like I pretty much just post my shorts on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. I'm pretty active on Twitter and then YouTube, man. How about those Chiefs? Go live multiple times a week, shorts every day, and I try to do like a daily update video 3 to 4 days a week. Those take 5 to 7 hours, sometimes longer. So they are a beast. And in the off season, I'll say this: once the draft comes, we'll have plenty of content for a while, and I'm excited about that. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And dude, much respect to you and your channel. And dude, thanks for serving. I don't know where you are. Are you allowed to say where you're based right now?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm in the state of South Dakota.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nice, dude. Yeah, I remember when you announced that you were going to step away from making content for a little bit because you had to go through I think basic training and some other
Yep.
stuff. And so much respect to you. I'm 32 now, but when I was 18, I did talk with a recruiter. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I didn't end up going that route, but it was a route I considered just because I think it's pretty admirable to serve your country. And then there's obviously benefits of they'll pay for your college and other stuff like that. But dude, much respect to you for doing that. Dan Harms as well. He's another guy in the military, and it's pretty cool. Like, hopefully, I don't know what your job is exactly, but during your free time while you're working military stuff, you'll just be able to keep making Chiefs content as your schedule permits. Will you be free during the season? Like, is it going to be open somewhat?
Yeah, so like, I mean, my job during the season, there's going to be times where I might have to work during a Chiefs game or something like that, but I'm still going to have most of my weekends, and I'm going to have plenty of free time to watch the games for the most part. So
sweet.
Yeah, no, it's a cool gig, but no, I appreciate that for sure. And again, thank you for coming on my channel. And for those of you that aren't subscribed to Cole, make sure you go and do that. And I'll leave a link in the description to your channel so you guys can go ahead and find it. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, guys. We'll see you on the other side of the NFL draft. Make sure you check out Cole's channel for his draft coverage too, whenever that comes. But I'm going to go ahead and sign off, guys. So with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. Make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And we will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs.